This is the Friday Sports Riot on SportsTownChicago.com. Call the show. It's 630-403-5200. That's 630-403-5200. And on the phone line, we have from ESPN 1000, Fred Huebner. What's up, Fred?
Hey, guys. How are you?
We are doing good. So how has everything been at ESPN 1000 since we last had you on the show?
Oh, everything's been great. There's been a lot of new things happening. I'm actually fortunate enough to do a soccer show with the Chicago Fire on Saturday mornings, and been busy this week because Carmen's wife had a baby, so he had a week off, so people were juggling and jumping in and filling in and doing shows, and so things have been busy over there.
Now let's start talking about March Madness. How is your tournament? How is your team looking so far in the brackets and stuff?
So far, I've got my Final Four still left. I've got I had 3 of the 4 winners last night. I'm hoping to have 3 of the 4 today. Duke kind of screwed me up early, but I'm sure Duke screwed most people up early.
Right.
I had picked Michigan State at the beginning of the pool to win the whole thing. Last year, I got the bracket on Monday morning afterwards, looked at the bracket, made my picks, and turned it in to the guy that was gathering the pools last year. I did the same thing this year. I figure the more you think about it, the worse you can do. And also, a lot of times when people are picking brackets, they look for the upsets. You know what? I realized if you want to win these things, just go with favorites, and every once in a while you get lucky. And I did last year, and hopefully I will again this year.
What is your take on this year's March Madness with teams like Duke being upset? Like, these are teams that people thought would go far with players like Parker. What happened to the big-name teams?
You know, it's weird. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what to think of this because usually in college ball, everybody talks about how it's the coach's game, and in pro ball, it's the player's game. Well, if that's the case, it's pretty shocking to see Mike Krzyzewski go out as soon as he did and things like that. I was shocked that when Duke went out. Kansas going out was a little shocking, too, even though they didn't have Embiid in there early because of his injury, his back injury. I kind of thought they'd be better. But when you coach young players, you got to have them ready for the tournament. And apparently, Bill Self didn't have Wiggins ready. He took no shots in the last 6 minutes of the game. And then I guess you'd have to say that Jabari Parker wasn't ready. I think that surprises me the most of anything because the way Jabari Parker played for the 4 years at Simeon and the way he played all season at Duke, I was kind of surprised at what happened there. But it's I guess it really comes down to teams that play well together when it comes tournament time, and it's great to see like other coaches like this, you know, Archie Miller and his Dayton team, and Fred Hoiberg and his Iowa State team, and Kevin Ollie with UConn. It's nice to see each and every year you get to see more of these young coaches stepping up and actually building and developing programs with players that actually stay more than 1 year. I used to love the tournament; it was my favorite thing. But over the last couple of years, with the whole one and dones, I've kind of lost a little bit of interest, but I think this year some of that interest is coming back.
And now these last few years, Duke has not made it as far as some people would have thought. Is that because Coach K hasn't had like a presence in the paint? Like, is that one of the things that is hurting Duke right now?
Well, it's weird. It's hard to say because I think in all of basketball, and I think you guys know, in all of basketball, it seems like the center is a position that's going away. You see a lot of people going with 3 guards and a couple of forwards, and I think they just need some players that can be a dominant rebounder and dominate inside, but not necessarily a big man. And that's probably a pretty good point with not having a presence inside. But even you look at last night's games, and some of the games last night, obviously for the exception of Wisconsin with the Bennett High School kid Frank Kaminsky, but a lot of the other teams really didn't have a big guy, that was a presence inside. I think that, you look at Florida, they were getting their shots from the 3-point range and things like that. So I don't know. It's strange. I don't know that Duke. You think about it, maybe I'm just forgetting people, but Duke and a presence inside, I think they've been pretty much a guard and small forward led university for a long time.
Yeah, I also agree with that. And let's move on to some baseball talk. What should Cubs fans be looking for this year as far as some of the spots that are starting to look up, like Anthony Rizzo and Starlin Castro?
Well, I think both of those guys are going to have really good, really big comeback seasons. It's hard to say what Castro is going to do because he missed most of spring training with his hamstring, and it was interesting too. They said that was a week to 10 days, and that was pretty much a lot more than that for him to miss. But they say he's almost 100% now, and I think Anthony Rizzo figured it out. If you think about it, he had some problems before he came to the Cubs, and when he was in San Diego, they straightened those problems out. I'd love to see Anthony Rizzo have a good year and Starlin Castro. I'm anxious to see what Mike Holt does. I really like the Cubs were fortunate to get this guy who they tried to get in the Dempster trade a couple of years ago, and he was untouchable. Texas was not going to get rid of him until he had this problem with his vision and things like that, and they got him in the Garza deal, and now it appears that he's fine, and that'd be a good thing. But you look at it, Mike Holt's at third base. They may have to move Baez or Castro once Baez comes up, maybe late this year or early next year. And then you have Chris Bryant, last year's first pick. So third base, after having nobody to play the position, my apologies to Luis Valbuena, but, having nobody to play the position, now you've got a glut of people at third base. I'm anxious to see, obviously, in years to come, what Soler and Almora and everybody's going to do. And I would really like to see the Cubs figure out a way to keep Jeff Samardzija. I would love to see Jeff Samardzija stick around. Last year, Samardzija had a lot of strikeouts. He didn't have a lot of, a good ERA and things like that. His record wasn't that great. But I think he's the kind of guy that wants to stay here and grow with this Cubs organization. And I think it'd be great to see him stick around.
How good of a year will Rick Renteria have on the Cubs?
It's interesting because first-year managers, you're never too sure, and the Cubs are really not expected to do all that well this year because they really don't have a whole heck of a lot of pitching. They're still building for the future, and I don't think that Theo Epstein and Jed Hoyer really lied to anybody. You pretty much know that what they're doing. They're going out there. They're going to play hard. I think Renteria is going to get the guys to play hard. I think that's going to happen. I don't think you'll have any problems with getting the players enthused to get out there. But it would be hard for him to have a good record. I think Renteria, according to what Theo thinks, I think Renteria may be the guy to be here for the long term. I'm not sure what other Cub fans think, but I think Renteria, if in fact he shows that he can deal with the players and the young players, he may be the guy to be here for the long term, maybe when the Cubs plan on getting good.
Now let's move on to some Chicago White Sox stuff. Do you think that the Sox are going to have a good year this year as far as competing with other teams in the Central like Kansas City and Detroit?
Well, Kansas City, they never had pitching. Then they got pitching, and then Hosmer and Moustakas had miserable seasons last year. I can't see those two guys having down seasons again. Alex Gordon in left field I really like, and I think that Kansas City, if they ever are going to have a breakout year, it's going to be again this year. For Detroit, they kind of got stuck with a couple of injuries that are really going to hurt them, I think. They made a deal to pick up a shortstop last week after the shortstop that they got from Boston went down with some hairline fractures in his shin. I still think, despite all the pitching, all the starting pitching that Detroit has, their bullpen is going to struggle. It always does. I know they brought in Joe Nathan for the end of games, but I still think that if there's a weak point on Detroit, it's their bullpen. And I think maybe as a Sox fan, I'm always hoping that's the case. For the White Sox, I think that they're going to be better. I can't imagine them ever being as bad as they were last year. 99 losses was miserable. They ran the bases poorly. They fielded badly. And I never blame the poor fielding on a manager. I just think something happened, and everybody on that team just had a miserable season last year. Diaza, despite the fact that he can hit the ball out of the park and get on base sometimes leading off, he was one of the worst base runners I've ever seen in the major leagues last season. I'm anxious to see Abreu and Avi Garcia for a whole season. I really think they have problems behind the plate with Tyler Flowers. I thought they were going to go out and get somebody. I was hoping Josh Begley would improve more than he did. Mm-hmm. I think Matt Davidson will be up here, too, before long. But Connor Gillespie did what he has to do. He hit the ball in spring training and played some decent defense. So I think with the pitching staff of Sale and Danks and Quintana, who knows what Felipe Paulino can do. They brought him over, and this youngster Eric Johnson is also in the rotation. So I think that I think they'll be able to hang for a while. I think 500 is not out of the question for the White Sox. It's not a great season, but it's a lot better than 99 losses.
Yeah, and also, now your take on the Miguel Cabrera signing. He signed that big contract with Detroit. Do you think that they overpaid him, or do you think that they're just trying to give him as much money as he wants to stay?
I think he's worth a lot. I know probably the happiest guy when he saw that deal was Mike Trout, because Mike Trout will probably end up getting a $400 million contract when his time comes around. But I think Miguel Cabrera, of all the players in baseball, Miguel Cabrera is pretty much the one constant. The one problem that they have had with Cabrera is, staying healthy late in the season. Miguel Cabrera at the end of last year was not the Miguel Cabrera that you saw in the previous 5 or 6 months of the year. And in order for them to win, they need a healthy Miguel Cabrera when it comes playoff time. Maybe him moving to first base will help a little bit. But I think if anybody deserves the money, what Miguel Cabrera has done the last couple of years shows that he deserves it. I don't mind the money. I know the money's going to be outrageous, but these owners wouldn't give that kind of money if they didn't have it. And I think Max Scherzer is probably kicking himself right now, because if he would have taken what they offered, he'd have that. Now he's going to have to sit and wait for a deal. They offered him about $24 to $25 million a season, just under Verlander, and he didn't take it. That kind of surprised me. You don't see many people turn down $24 million a year.
And now, what are some things that Miggy does so well that makes him such a fun player to watch during each game?
I don't know that I've ever seen a hitter in baseball go the other way as easily as he does. I mean, as a right-handed hitter, he hits the ball with so much power to right center and even straightaway right field. I was talking to another guy who's kind of a baseball expert that I know, and he was saying that it's funny because if you watch him, especially with young pitchers sometimes, the first time at bat, Miguel Cabrera will go up there and he'll take pitches and give the young pitcher some confidence that maybe I can get out of Miguel Cabrera. And when Miguel Cabrera comes to the plate later in the game in a key situation, that pitcher will use those same pitches, and Cabrera will just put him in the stands. He's very, very smart. He's intelligent. He had his demons a while back. He had an alcohol problem, a drinking problem, and that's well documented. But you know what? He's one of the best players we've seen to come to the major leagues. You remember, we've seen this guy grow up. I mean, from the Marlins organization when he was playing against the Cubs way back in the day, we've seen this kid grow up, and it's just great. He's one of those guys, when he's coming to the plate, you never want to miss an at-bat when Miguel Cabrera is up.
And now I want to get your take on this. Where could he rank when it's all said and done?
That's a good question. I don't know what numbers-wise, like total number-wise, like total home runs and things like that. But I think when people that have seen him play, he will always rank in their top 5, probably in hitting. I don't know that he's going to come up with the number of home runs and things like that. He is an RBI machine, though, so that's something to keep an eye on. But, it's hard to think of Miguel Cabrera and think of 5 or 6 better hitters in the history of the game than Miguel Cabrera has been. Plus, and I know some people say, well, home runs and RBIs and average, those aren't the stats we all look at now because of the whole sabermetrics. But winning the Triple Crown hadn't been done since 1967, and he went and did it a couple of years ago, and I think that's pretty darn impressive.
Now, before we let you go, where can we find your work online and on the radio?
Well, you know what? You can find me on Saturday mornings doing the Chicago Fire Weekly Show from 7 to 8, along with Kevin Egan. I'm a big Fire fan. I did play-by-play for the Fire back in 08 and 09, and I'm really happy to be back with the team as they just get their season started. Cool. I work with Mike Murphy from 9 to noon, also on Saturdays. I'm usually on Sundays from 10 until 12, doing a show of my own, kind of like a general sports show where we talk about everything. And every once in a while, you can catch me doing updates in the evenings, and also maybe getting a chance to work with Jay Hood every once in a while on game night, also on ESPN.
And now, real quick, how good of a year could the Fire have?
Well, you know what? the teams in Major League Soccer are all pretty. There's a lot of parity in Major League Soccer. Last year, Seattle played very well. Portland played very well. The Chicago Fire just missed making the playoffs. 10 teams make the playoffs in Major League Soccer, 5 from each conference. And the Fire just missed out basically on goals. They had the same number of points as the team that was in 5th. The Fire picked up some young players, a local kid named Harry Shipp who played at Notre Dame and also is from up in Lake Forest. They have another kid named Benji Hoya who is hopefully in years to come will be on the U.S. men's national team. And with a goalie like Sean Johnson and last year's MVP and Mike McGee, they could definitely make a run in the playoffs. I'm picking him to finish about second or third in the Eastern Conference, and also get an opportunity to make some hay when it gets to the postseason.
Well, Fred, thanks for coming on to Friday Sports Riot. We would love to have you on again.
Guys, always fun. Let me know when you want me again, okay?
Sounds good.
Thanks.
Thanks, Fred.
Sounds great. Thanks.
And that was Fred Huebner of ESPN 1000, a Chicago legend, on the show to talk sports.
The Friday Sports Riot on SportsTownChicago.com.